Universities are profiting off of students and not how you'd expect. Caesars Sportsbook, an online betting app, struck an $8.4 million deal with Michigan State University last year. They're selling access to their student population. They're taking all the email addresses and they're selling it to the highest bidder, and bid, pun included. Do you think that students should be targeted using their university information and their data being sold to online betting organizations and apps to be targeted for all this? Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are as we unpack this. So if you're a student right now, you need to know this. Your school is probably selling access to you. You've got Caesars, DraftKings, they're advertising directly to you or indirectly through giving your information to these apps and these different companies. The University of Colorado Boulder collects, for example, $30 every time someone uses the university's promotional code to download the PointsBet gambling app and start betting. About 3/4 of college students gambled in the past year. So that's a majority. A vast majority of college students are gambling, and 6% of them, an estimated 6%, have a serious gambling problem. And so this is, when I say serious gambling problem, I mean all the signs of addiction. And so this is something that if you know a college student, I want to encourage you to reach out to them and let them know that this is something that is a growing epidemic. And if you're thinking of your child or your future college student and you're wondering, should I be worried about this? Let's weigh the pros and cons. Every year that goes by, I think college is worth less and less. And I'm going to unpack a few different reasons why right here. Number one, debt. Between 1995 and 2022, the total federal student loan debt balance increased by 766.3%. Okay, now that's a pretty big time period, but we're talking about in less than 20 years. And so that's the number one reason why I think that college is losing its overall net value for students, is that we're seeing a huge increase in the debt burden. And you've heard it in the news, you know what I'm talking about, that the debt balance for individual students and for the student body as a whole as they're coming out of college is just way too high. It's unsustainable, and it's a huge problem. The second point that I have to make about the declining value of college is in employment itself. Now, you are twice as likely to be employed with a bachelor's degree if you went to college, but that gap is narrowing every single year. It used to be much higher, so that if you got a degree, you're much more likely to get hired after college. But that gap is narrowing as we go on, and we're finding that especially post-pandemic, the number of trade schools and certificate programs and options out there for a student are huge, and the options online to get an education, to get a certification, to get qualified to do a job is growing. And so you have a lot of options out there to really expand what you can be doing. So the first one is debt. The second one's employment. Here we are for the third reason why I think college is losing its value: the exploitation that we're seeing. Risk of gambling addiction has gone up 30%, and that is almost entirely concentrated around men ages 18 to 24. And so the amount of gambling addiction that we're seeing in our society is driven by the university demographic, by young adults, especially young adult men today. And I don't think that there's any coincidence that there's an overlap between university age students and an increase in the overall gambling addiction rate. And so a 30% increase is pretty huge. And I know that a lot of people, maybe, you got a taste of that trading stocks, over the course of the pandemic. When things are going up, it's exhilarating. It's fun to be betting on things and seeing a return on that. Or maybe it's something where it's a generational thing. Maybe this is something where the transition from millennials to even younger generations that we're seeing now in, I guess, the 18 to 24 range is something where they have more access. And certainly, I think above all else, The number one reason why we're seeing such an increase now is just access. I think that everyone being able to not only have access to all these different gambling apps on cell phones, but also be able to streamline the targeting of ads. We've never been more advertised to than we are today. And the attention economy, this is something where they're grabbing at your attention and they're able to do so way more efficiently. And you know what? Universities have paid attention to this, and they found a way that they can profit off of selling that attention of their student body regardless of the financial implications. This is the third reason why I think that anyone who's considering to send their kid to college needs to maybe think twice about the pros and cons and weigh whether or not it's the best option for your loved one or the best option for yourself. If you're someone that's thinking, maybe I don't want to go to college, maybe I need to take a year off, I think that's a great idea. And so it's something that's worth weighing out. This is only one facet of it, but I think it's an indicator for the way that universities are treating their populations and how they're selling your attention as a student. Should gambling apps be directly marketed to students? This is the real question. This is the core of it. Maybe you're on one side and you think, yes, if they're 18, then they're adults and they should be able to be marketed to just like any other way. And they're probably getting the marketing anyway. Why shouldn't a university profit from it? And then, you may be on the other side and think, no, they're still kids. And frankly, if you want my honest opinion, this is where I lie. I don't think that they should be systematically advertised to for a specific product that's going to put them at unrealistic risk, outsized problem for young adults that are already making really tough financial decisions. And so do I think that they're adults and they should be able to learn from their own mistakes and consequences? Yes. Do I think that a system should be put in place around them to directly market them for this product? I don't think so. So why don't you let me know your opinion? Now, that's a yes or no question. I'd love to see it in the comments, or you can message me. I want to hear what you have to say about whether or not you think that students should be directly marketed to for gambling apps. And, I don't recommend it, but if you're going to gamble, here's some tips. I've got three or four different ideas for you to help, engage in this entertainment healthily. Because if 75% of you out there are gambling, then, there's no shame in that. Now, I don't want you to, dig yourself in a hole, but I want you to be equipped. I want you to be able to do it in a smart way so that you can get entertainment out of it and not pay for it in the long run. So to start out, gambling should be part of your entertainment budget line. There's two parts to that. First part, if you don't have a budget, then you have no business gambling. You're already kind of gambling with your financial future if you're not budgeting your expenses, not just year to year, month to month, but really paying attention. If you're 18 to 24, your cash flow is low and you need to be paying attention to where every dollar goes, because it's going to make a huge difference for you down the road. So if you have a category there, let's say you're spending 10% of your income on entertainment, and then that should be a part of your entertainment budget. And I'm a little bit more conservative. I'm considering alcohol and eating out at bars, concert tickets, movie tickets, all those kind of things. Those are all entertainment to me, and especially also gambling. So you should be budgeting it, and you should try to control the gambling. Don't spend 10% of your take-home pay on gambling. Try to keep it into 1% or less of your total paycheck. So when you get that paycheck in, if you find yourself in a position where you're spending 10% of your income on gambling and you're not doing any other entertainment because you're following the first rule, then that's an indicator for a problem. It's just too much. And so try to keep it within 1%. And if you have maybe some friends that have a huge buy-in and you want to participate in it, then I guess it's time to save up. If that's what you really want to do with your money, I say go for it. But do it in a smart way. So set yourself up a boundary so you don't end up, digging yourself a hole right from the beginning. So how about part number 3? You should always decide how much ahead of time. So this is what I'm talking about, not digging a hole before you even start. go ahead and come up with a plan. You've got 10% of your budget going to entertainment. You got 1% of that at most going to gambling. And so that's your number. Know your number and stick to how much you want to gamble on ahead of time. Maybe this is a situation where you definitely don't go to a casino and just have a card that you can swipe that's attached to your credit line. So worst case scenario, there's like 5 reasons why I wouldn't encourage someone to do that. But if you have to be gambling, then cash amounts, a fixed amount, and know when to walk away. And so I know that this is know when to hold them, know when to fold them, and I'm going to try to resist making as many of those jokes as possible, but know your number and go ahead and start out in a way that you're going to be able to control that number and try to keep yourself at or below it throughout the entire process. So the next step along the way for some advice if you're going to be gambling is when you're up, keep cashing out some of your principal so that you're not always continuing to just ride the wave and then crash as hard as you can. So maybe this is a more nuanced opinion. I mean, we're really getting in the weeds here. Best case scenario, you're not gambling at all unless you're literally just betting on something fun, betting on beans. If you're going to be using money, then when you're up, I would recommend cashing out some of your principal. And that goes for if you're betting on other things too. If you're betting on the stock market, let's say that you have something you put your money in and GameStop is going to the moon and all of a sudden it's 400% increase, then I'm taking my principal out. I'm making sure that anything that I'm riding on is only upside. And so then it makes it more fun, and at least psychologically it takes a little bit of the pressure off, because if you all of a sudden eat into your principal, the initial amount that you invested or gambled, then if you start eating into that, then it can be psychologically stressful and it takes all the fun out of it. I mean, we're talking about entertainment here. So this is my last piece of advice for if you're going to be gambling, and this is an important one. Never hide how much you are up or down, especially if you're married. If you have a spouse and you find yourself that need to hide how much you've either made from gambling or how much you're down and you're trying to skirt around and sneak around, then that's an indicator for something unhealthy. So if you're in a position where you're a student and you're gambling, or if you're any age adult, especially if you have a spouse, don't hide it. This should be something that you should be able to be open and honest about. This is something for entertainment, and if you're hiding something about it, then there's something unhealthy there and you should do some soul searching. Probably shouldn't be gambling. Here's how to spot if someone that you know has a gambling addiction problem. So here are 4 different indicators and important things to look out for if you think that someone that you know has a problem. If someone is spending more than they planned, let's say they have a plan and all of a sudden they're in double from what they said they were going to be. I'm only going to spend $100 tonight, and the next thing you know, they're $200 deep and they're losing fast. That's an indicator of unhealth. If you have someone you know and that's one of their tendencies, find out a safe way to encourage them to get help. Number 2, siphoning money from other sources. And this is what I've seen over and over. I've seen so many people on TikTok, whether it's true or not, they are siphoning money from their tuition, from their college savings, gambling on it as a get-rich-quick scheme. And I gotta tell you, that is way risky. There's always a risk tolerance to every kind of investment or every kind of gamble that you make. And if you're doing that, you're risking way more than just your short-term cash on hand. You're risking your future. And so if you're spending and siphoning money from other sources in order to gamble, then that's a sign of a gambling addiction. Now, number 3, if you're jeopardizing relationships, like what we talked about earlier with lying to your spouse, if you're jeopardizing relationships, if you're trying to hide things, then that's a sign of a gambling addiction. And then number 4, derailing career opportunities. So I think of a bigger picture, and specifically with students, if you are taking away from your educational potential, then I think that's derailing career opportunities. But if you find yourself skipping out on work, if you find yourself maybe jeopardizing relationships and networking that could be used in a healthy way to further your career, then these are all different ways that you could be exhibiting signs of a gambling addiction. So if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, then you can call the Tennessee Red Line at 800-889-9789. If you want to save yourself from working off debt your whole life, you need to know this. The average student debt is $30,000. And for some people that sounds like a lot, for others it doesn't sound like that much. But the average gambling debt is $50,000. And so some students are graduating and the student debt crisis is already bad enough. Universities, they're making it worse by selling access to their students to gambling apps, and sometimes they're doubling the debt burden that students are graduating with. You can avoid the debt spiral and get a head start with our free weekly newsletter for insights that are going to be helping you for all these different types of topics. You're also going to get a free ebook. It's my 5 steps to go from financial stress to financial success. All you have to do is click the link below. And in 2023, your money goals, they should be massive and life-changing for you. And I want to help answer your questions to add jet fuel to those goals for this year. So send me a message with your goals and hurdles, and I'll work to unpack them one after another. And in the meantime, the best place to start is your income. So check out this video here for different tips on your side hustle and your next stream of income.